I'm continuing my look at the Bishop's Gambit, and we're coming more and more up to date. We started with the Immortal game from 1851. We looked at a game of Bobby Fischer's from 1968, and now this is a rapid play game from 2013 between Vasily Ivanchuk and Anish Giri. Don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe, and do consider supporting us via Patreon or PayPal. So here we go, Vasily Ivanchuk playing white and a Bishop's Gambit. So I find this fascinating that Ivanchuk plays this against someone like Giri, who I would say is not known for his romantic chess. You know, he is someone, how can I put it, who has a very formal way of playing. You know, he grew up in the great traditions of the Russian school of chess, and he believes in taking pawns, he believes in sound development and, you know, healthy pawn structures. And I don't think we would see Giri playing with the King's Gambit or indeed even the Bishop's Gambit. But Ivanchuk, he has been a great exponent of the Bishop's Gambit in recent years, actually, or let's just say throughout his career. So we have a really intriguing clash of styles. Now, I think it's very unlikely that one would see Queen h4 check played by Giri. He plays the theoretically approved answer to the Bishop's Gambit, and that is Knight f6, sound development. This is the way that you play against these gambits. You don't try and hang on to that pawn. You don't speculate with a weird check. You get your pieces out and you block out your opponent's bishop. And c6. So this has a good reputation, and as one would expect from Giri, he plays the theoretically approved move. So he wants to play d5, blocking out the bishop. Fair enough, that's what he's done. But in fact, this position still is quite complicated. Nigel Short has played this quite a bit with white, with decent results, I should say, not just in rapid play games, but in classical chess. And there's, well, a famous game between Morozevich and Anand that went bishop b4 here. Perhaps I'll look at that another time. I know some of my Patreons have seen a video I've done with that, but yeah, maybe another time. That's an amazing game. But here Giri plays bishop d6, and once again, I should say, Giri, as one would expect, he knows the theory, and he protects his pawn on f4. Now, Nigel Short in this position likes to play knight f3, and that is a very reasonable move. For example, he played that against Karpov and got, I think, a very decent position, got some advantage out of the opening. But Ivanchuk plays knight e2, so he's determined to take that pawn. And Giri plays f3 to mess up white's kingside pawns. Now, interestingly, very recently, this position appeared in the game between Jan Nepomniachtchi and Levon Aronian in one of the Magnus Carlsen online blitz tournaments or rapid play tournaments. So this was in March, just before the candidates actually. So Nepo against Aronian went bishop g4 in this position. But Nepo showed that actually this also is very dangerous. Just let me go through a few of these moves very quickly. I mean, you can see already white's pieces look very healthy. And there is pressure on the g file, we like that. And here Nepo played rook f1, which is not a bad move, just bringing the rook into play. But in fact, he could have played knight takes d5, and that wins a pawn, and, well, white's pieces still look very good. There's a little tactic here, actually. Bishop takes, just forgive me for a little digression. There's a queen sack possible. This works for white, because after this, This leads to a forced checkmate. There we go. Right up to date, a game played in 2021 and still features a beautiful romantic checkmate. That didn't happen, by the way. That's just a variation. But yeah, as I said, this occurred in Nepo against Aronian. Nepo ended up losing, but as I said, he had a very nice position. But Giri played f3. Forgive me for that little digression. Here. Now, I'd like you to have a think. How would you play this position as white? White to play. I do find it fascinating that players of the caliber of Giri and Aronian can still get it very wrong against these 19th century openings, you know, this bishop's gambit. And Ivanchuk got a fantastic attack from this position. What did he do? Well, he played bishop g5. Of course, one can castle kingside, but with the split pawns, yeah, I know Nepo did it, but that was a little different, that situation. He'd gain time against that bishop. Castles is possible, but bishop g5 is just really strong here. And well, if you look on the databases, white actually has a big score with bishop g5, actually. And yeah, it's not easy for black now. So Giri played bishop e6 to bolster the pawn on d5. And here's the point. White is going queenside. And why not? You've got an open g-file. And it's just a gift of a position for white. And Giri going backwards. Castle's queenside. You know, it's not as though putting the king on the queen side is a risky decision. You've got beautiful protection here. Not just from the pawns, but from these pieces too. So the king is very safe. There is still pressure on d5. There's the open g-file. There's also some pressure here on the bishop on e6. It looks tremendous. So pressure on e6, the pawn on d5, and well, we shouldn't forget the g-file as well. And already, I think improvements are very hard to find for black. You know, my computer thinks that black should play like this. Well, you've got to have a head of silicon to play like this because it just looks so risky. I mean, there are so many interesting moves here. One could simply exchange and bring the bishop back and go for h4. Queen g2 and bishop takes looks like a lot of fun. I mean, that is not an easy sacrifice to meet. Anyway, it's just funny what computers come up with, you know. If that's the best that black is doing here, gee, then black is really in trouble. And just watch what happens in the game. Knight a5. Well, reasonable to exchange off that bishop, which just kind of lessens the pressure on d5. However, this is interesting. Of course, rook g1 is possible, but you know, it's very inviting simply to play the rook to e1 when those bishops are lined up beautifully. Knight takes bishop and pawn takes. So after that exchange, the bishop has been replaced by a pawn, and that is still a beautiful clump of pawns to protect white's king. h6 and bishop h4. One, of course, one could take here and take on e6, but I think that's selling the position a bit short, actually. Queen a5. Okay, we need to defend against that. But the thing is, after king b1, actually the queen finds itself really out of play. Like I said, it's difficult at this moment to find improvements for black. But yeah, this is a really tough position. Giri played knight e4 to try and take some pressure off e6. But just pawn takes and bishop takes, so we have an exchange. Okay. Now, I mean, there are I think, well, several ways to play this position. But Ivanchuk, well, he decided to move his rook. He kept it pretty simple. Rook g1. So the attack now starts on the g file. Bishop back, pinning, and blocking the g file just for a moment. But that is a very easy piece to displace. Pawn to h4. Bishop takes knight, queen takes. So threat to take here. And, well, dare I say it, the chances of black defending this are minimal, considering that black's queen is in Siberia. It really is just completely out of play. King h8, and this is very easy now. Pawn takes. Okay, over to you. How are you going to continue the attack for white? Not too difficult. Incidentally, before we just finish the game, just look at those pawns. I mean, white's position there is just untouchable, basically. Anyway, back to the attack. Rook takes, rook check, not easy. Sorry, very easy rather. Knight e4. I'm losing the power of speech. Knight e4. All the pieces flood over. There is really no defense now. And wow, what a victory. Mate threatened. Bishop g4. And now, well, that would be a mistake. Because suddenly out of the blue, queen check. And that'd be a perpetual check. But of course, there's no need to get involved with that. Queen e7 check. And after the king goes back, well, here Giri resigned, but the point is after the king goes back, rook takes, and the e1 square is now covered by the queen. So very simple. So yeah, queen e7 check, that was the final move of the game. What a destruction. And once again, we see what happens when a player is a little bit unfamiliar with the opening. And even though Giri clearly knew that this was sort of the approved way to play against the bishop's gambit, even then he got caught out really badly, and after bishop g5 and queen d2, black's position very, very difficult. Hope you're enjoying these bishop's gambit games. There's more to tell, there's more to show you. At some point I'll show you what black, in my opinion, really should do against this. But for the moment, just enjoy these games. Thanks for watching.